And we're now live and being recorded. So again, welcome to tonight's information session. And I'd like to begin with opening prayer. So the Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Gracious God, thank you for bringing us to this point in our day. You have watched over us, you protected us, you fed us, and you clothed us. We ask that you be with us in this time as we enter into the evening and we consider the bell tower, which is a significant issue, but in our world, there are many things of greater importance. So may we keep that in perspective, and may we visit this this concern of our historic building through the eyes of faith and how it relates to our mission and ministry, sharing your love to this world in need. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen.
All right, well, there it is. You get two screens with pictures. This one has a picture if you like pictures, and then halfway through or there so you'll get another picture break with a bunch of pictures. So otherwise you'll get to see some boring PowerPoint slides with lots of information. But hopefully that'll be a way for you to get the information that I think it's necessary. So hang on to your hat. It's about this morning, about 30 minutes of me, or 20, maybe 20, 25 minutes of me talking. And then after that, it's however long you want to go. So we went a little over an hour. So after I talked, we had about 30, 35 minutes of conversation. Feel free to hop off whenever you want, as time needs or whatever. And again, this one should be recorded. You can catch the rest later. So here we go. From the picture, get that image of the bell tower in your head, and now we're going to talk about that. Oops, as soon as I can get my slideshow live here. I want to jump right to the point here, and this is why we're here. So this is from the THP engineering report we received last Friday. So it's less than 1 week old, 6 days old, this report, the formal written report. And I'll read this. This to me is the most significant quote of this 15 or 20 page document. The bell tower structure and facade veneer are in poor condition, requiring immediate remediation to establish the stability of these building elements. Should the cost of remediation exceed viable resources, the bell tower should be raised to the level of the supporting girders. All right, so that report goes through in great detail in technical language that engineers get excited and can understand much better than a seminary graduate. But it is written in such a way that even I could grasp the significance and the meanings of it. And it sets up the conditions that lead to this statement here. It also sets up the stage for the possibility of restoration or renovation. And so we'll address that in a little while. But that's that. And then the next thing is we received one bid pretty much because there's only one company in Cincinnati that's capable of doing a restoration of a historic bell tower like First Lutherans, and that was from HGC or SSRG. And that estimate for a full bell tower restoration came in at about $1.2 million. There's different phases of restoration. There could be some stabilization effort that could be done short term, but then eventually all the restoration would need to be done totaling 1.2. The cheapest restoration effort that would be a stabilization effort would be came in at about $610,000. So $610,000 is the lowest cost we would have to stabilize it, and we would have $500,000 or $700,000 more to go on after that. And also keep in mind that would be restoring a tower using the 1895 skeleton. As would still be there. So that's a concern too, is putting $1.2 million into a structure that has 1895 engineering design to it. Was kind of lifted up by the engineers as we talked to them as something to be mindful of, but it doesn't mean that it couldn't function and serve well for another 100 years. And then we received 3 estimates for demolition, and they range from $300,000 to $410,000. And those estimates, 2 of them include the demolition of the 1212 building to the north of First Lutheran. The reason being is that just because of the streetcar and the narrow alley on the backside, there's no place to stage or set up the equipment and to do the demolition work in a efficient, safe way as they saw it. So removing the 1212 building lowers the cost and provides an environment to make that happen. The higher cost, $410,000, is one that has 1212 still there, and the scaffolding is set up on 1212, and the debris is brought down through the building, I understand, or off the top roof of the building, and then through the back alley or something like that. But that's the range there on that. So we can see the lowest range for demolition is $300 to $410,000. The path to 2020. So I want to touch on how did we get here to this point, and this will be an overview of some of the things. But in 2014, when I started in August, one of the first things within 6 weeks of arrival at First, we had put together a list of capital restoration needs. And that was a question I had coming in new is what are we up against here? And is it good stewardship of finances to invest in this historic building? And the estimate at the time was all the work is $3.1 million. And so the decision was made at that time to remain in the building and continue the restoration effort, work that had been done for many generations, and then most intensely by recent leadership at the church with partners. So the decision was made that we were going to stay there and continue this work. And then so that then was a significant thing, because if we were going to walk away, if you will, from First Lutheran and its historic building, that would have been a good time to do it. Not after we put 1.3 million into it. So it makes it a little harder to walk away and say, hey, this is too much when you have that much invested in these recent years. But as I've lifted up in previous conversations leading up to this point today is it might come to a point where that still might be a reality. It might financially just be too overwhelming for us. I don't think so. I'm confident and hopeful that we'll have paths forward. So 2014 to 2020, consultants are engaged to help identify possible resources for assistance. And I have a slide on that goes through those experiences. And then 2015 to 2022, capital fund sources are secured. And I have a slide that goes through and details what that looks like. And then February 2020, we received a proposal from Ignite Philanthropy to conduct a community campaign that would potentially secure the remaining 1.8 million. So 1.3 million in and 1.8 to go would get us to 3.1. So we would be all done. So we had a strategy to reach the end, at least for our generation. It would have future needs, of course, but we did have a strategy in place that we were within a month of signing that contract to conduct the community campaign, which would have launched this summer. But COVID-19, as you know, made that unfeasible. The economic recession and pandemic just put that on hold. And then, as you can see, the cost related, I guess I'll come back on that. So COVID-19, yeah, so eliminates the possibility of community campaign for foreseeable future. So a community campaign is not, an intentional community campaign that is us going out in the community is not something that we are able to consider at this time. And then July 2020, THP structural engineer identifies critical concerns with the bell tower, which leads to the report, which we received last Friday, and then leads to our meeting here tonight. Consulting partners. So let's go through the history of our consultants we've engaged with. And I share this just because the effort that First Lutheran has been under as a ministry, as a faith community, is significant. We're trying to grow this faith community, trying to adapt to a new reality in the neighborhood, trying to identify what's it look like to be a faith community in this new neighborhood. All at the same time while restoring and renovating this historic building. So quite a few balls in the air. So it's been very helpful to have consultants along the way, come alongside of us and provide some guidance to our thinking. So it's not just a few of us on a whim deciding we want to do some of this stuff. It is indeed, there is significant amount of time and investment in discerning the best paths forward, and also what options, considering all options that might be possible, and exploring those options, and some of those options actually being dead ends or not bearing any fruit. So first, the Executive Service Corps of Cincinnati in October, November of 2014. For a few months I started, we hired them. It's a nonprofit organization here in Cincinnati that provides consulting resources to nonprofits. And that was $1,500, and that was a kind of a globalistic overview of First Lutheran's ministry. Everything on the table, and let's talk about that. And that was very helpful for my first 2 years in Cincinnati here, and with First Lutheran, to give us some specific things to focus on and to help develop our ministry. So that experience positive. Next would be identify the Southern Ohio Synod and the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. No cost with that. That's our judicatory. If you're watching this recorded version, not familiar with what ELCA is, that's our governing larger church body. And they provided redevelopment ministry resources. So nothing with capital efforts, but they provided guidance and resources to support our efforts to focus on our ministry. So ministry overview was helpful there. But it's impossible to talk about First Lutheran's ministry, as you all know, without connecting it to the building. That's just the reality of First Lutheran's ministry, because our building is our greatest resource. Some churches, their building can be a hindrance because it's not really serving the community. It's something that just is an expense and can be a hindrance to ministry. Well, First Lutheran, on the other hand, is the building is an enhancement to our ministry. So talking about our ministry always seems to lead to our building. Next, we engage coach development and an architect by the name of Joe Brashear they work with us, and we spent $6,500 and spent several months trying in pursuit of historic tax credits. He even drove to Columbus and met with the person in charge of the program for the state and to figure out our application and get some guidance on that. We spent $6,500 on that, and we were potentially looking at $250,000, but we realized that the likelihood of us receiving it as a nonprofit, it's possible, but as a nonprofit with very, very few employees, was unlikely because of the competitive nature over the Rhines receiving so many historic tax credits that it was unlikely that we would receive that. And also it would come with some restrictions down the road if we did receive those tax credits. So we decided to, it would have been another $5,000, $6,000 in expenses to pursue and put the application in. And we felt that spending more money on something that probably wouldn't provide a benefit was not good stewardship. But what's significant here is it's one thing that was lifted up as a possibility that people asked, have you looked into tax credits? That's something, you're a historic building. And so we can say with certainty that yes, we did. We spent, as you can see, $6,500, hired a consultant to do it and work with us and guide us. And no, it's not an option for First Lutheran. And so therefore, the assumption is, I'm very confident it wouldn't be an option now either. Next would be the enrichment group with capital campaign, Luke Bauman. Most people know Luke. Luke worked with us on the On Track and Resolute capital campaign, and that contract was for $15,000. And that effort was first, it talks about ministry capital campaigns, but it had a big focus on securing funds to restore our facade that was crumbling onto the sidewalk. So that was a necessary thing that we address. So we addressed the facade deterioration through that capital campaign and secured other funding for other things as well. But that was probably the most significant thing of that. And to point out there, the $15,000 spent on that consultant effort was great. And not only helped us focus on our ministry, but also that capital campaign secured $355,000 in new commitments to our capital fund. So very successful capital campaign. I would say about 40 households participating in that capital campaign. Next would be Partners for Sacred Spaces, Gianfranco Grande. We worked with Gianfranco and the Partners for Sacred Spaces consulting group. They did discovery study interviews. And so I created a list of 20 individuals, key leaders from the community, from the arts community, from historic preservation community, from nonprofit service agencies, from city officials to family foundation heads who could come in and meet with them separate of me and then just talk frankly about their perceptions of First Lutheran, and then also to discover if there might be some support for First Lutheran's efforts to restore our building and support our ministry, what we're doing in the community. The message there was overwhelmingly, lots of people are enthusiastic what First Lutheran's doing as far as a ministry contributing to the benefit of the greater Cincinnati community. And they're cheerleading, they're excited what we're doing, they appreciate it, and they value what we're doing. But when it comes to financial gifts and resources, there were not specific, it wasn't a specific ask at the time anyway, but it was the message though in the discovery study conversation is just to get a sense, if we did do an official community campaign, would there be funds available? And there were a few suggestions of, maybe $5,000 here or something like that, which is a nice gift, but relatively speaking to what we are in need of for our restoration efforts, it just did not seem like a good thing to continue down a path with Partners for Sacred Spaces, because they're based out of Chicago and Philadelphia. So they're not in Cincinnati. So the concern there was they would not have the network of connections in Cincinnati. I mentioned Ignite Philanthropy, the local consultant that we were going to move forward with. They have what Sacred Spaces does not. They have the local network and connections and are able to better discern if there would be people of interest who might be willing to support our restoration efforts for what we're doing for the community. So Partners for Sacred Spaces, $15,000. Their consulting fee to do a next phase campaign, which wouldn't even be a full community campaign, but was a price tag, I think, of $59,000. And so we thought that that was not in our interest to pursue that one. Next is Enrichment Group again with Luke Bauman, who helped us, same price for $15,000, helped us lead the Faith Forward campaign, which we just conducted last fall. Same style, same model. And that campaign did better than the first one and came in, if you include increased new gifts to the general fund, then we could point to new funds, capital and general funds of $410,000. So between the two capital campaigns, the Enrichment Group for the $30,000, you could say, is what do we get for that? Well, we had 700 and let's see, what's 410 and 350 is $760,000 from 40 households. In my mind, over a 6-year period, in my mind, that is it's a miracle. It's a miraculous response by such a small faith community. And that miraculous response has allowed us to do as much as we've had. You're going to see a list of what we've done. And to me, that is significant. And that plays into my thinking about what's before us and what's in the future is being mindful of what this small group of households have done already. There's to go back and say, hey, can you do more? Sure, you could ask a question, but I don't think that's the appropriate, at the present time, way to go about addressing our current situation. So Ignite Philanthropy would have been our partner in the community campaign. We received their proposal in January, and we were ready to review it and maybe sign it in late March, and then launch that in this summer. And that was part of our calling a second pastor. The second pastor would have started in June, and I would have been free to work on the community campaign for a year and a half. $180,000 is $10,000 a month for 18 months, so a year and a half effort. But the goal, the stated goal, was that would be a $2 million effort. So we would have secured all the remaining funds necessary to complete all of the capital restoration, which would include the bell tower, the elevator, the interior worship space, lighting, sound, plaster on the ceiling, and other things, the basement, community fellowship room. So that would have addressed all of those needs. But as we know, COVID-19 prevented that, and really it would be a little jaded to go to the community now with we could take the funds and go to the community and try and do a community campaign, but our response with a building that's not being used by the arts community for the past 7 months and won't be for another 4 or 5 months at least. So we don't have a good story to tell there about how the community is using our building. People understand it, but also we're in a recession and people are out of work and businesses are closing. So it's not the environment to be conducting that. Plus, as you saw, the immediacy of the bell tower situation is it needs to be addressed immediately. So we don't have the luxury of time either. We can't say, let's wait 2 years and then have a community campaign, and then we can address the bell tower then. So we have to use the funds that would have been available for the community campaign to address the bell tower. The THP Structural Engineers Bell Tower Condition Report. So we had one in December, which was an internal review of the bell tower, and said things look visibly look okay on the inside. There's issues, of course, but it looks all right. And then had a caveat that until we get the sun off the beam on the outside, we really can't make a full assessment of the significance of what might be going on with the tower. And so that led to July request or suggestion that maybe now they'd take that off and we could take a look at that. And the thought was, as Alan Elger, our architect and member at First, lifted it up as well. Be mindful that once we do this, we got to respond to whatever they find. And my thought was, I know we can't stick our head in the sand. It might be best now to receive this information while we're closed so that we can respond to it. as it's playing out, that's what's, I guess, one benefit here. But also, imagine if we would have launched our community campaign and made up all of our literature of our stated goal, and then found out that we need an extra $500,000, because that's the additional cost it's going to be to address the bell tower restoration. That would have been a messaging nightmare, in my opinion, and it would have been a big pivot in the change of information. So getting this information sooner rather than later is prudent, and I'm very glad we did do that. Because now with what's going on at the church, we have the luxury, I guess, of being able to focus on this without having to cancel events and then scramble to figure out how quickly we can do this. So back on that, the $7,000 we spent on the bell tower conditions report with the company that has a reputation. They do high level of trust in the community, as our leadership team has high level of trust with their expertise. So we appreciate their work, and it's authentically written, given all the options. And so that report is $7,000. So total realized consulting expenditures in 5 years is $60,000. So that seems like a lot collectively, but as much ground as we've covered and as much as we've been doing at First Lutheran, we've had a lot of things to consider and discuss. I think it's a worthwhile expenditure. I look forward to hiring more consultants in the future. We can point to a lot of things in here. We have a lot more information than we did in 2015 when we started this journey. For example, the tax credit's not an option, or the discovery study and the community partners, leads with sacred spaces. We learned a fair amount there as well. But also we learned too what's possible with our own community and how invested our community is. Capital funds are our journey on funding. This is what the financial picture looks like. The 2015 property projects appeal. My audio. You all hearing me all right, Bessie? Yeah. You are? Okay, I got a little alert on my audio. I don't know what that's about, but okay, your speaker is not. Okay. So you can hear me. I'm just going to go by your acknowledgement I'm working. So I'll keep on rolling here. So 2015 property projects appeal, that was the first spring I was here, and it was just, we identified some projects that First Lutheran volunteers and Good Shepherd volunteers, primarily led by Pastor Gunner, could accomplish. And so we raised $30,000, which was used to purchase materials. And then the volunteers were kept busy for about 3 years with that $30,000 doing work volunteer-based around the church. So a lot of the enhancements that you see inside were completed by volunteers and those funds raised early on. So that was kind of an early victory there that had kind of a positive momentum builder with the church. 2019 on track and resolute capital campaign, which Joe Vallow is on tonight. He was the chair of that effort. So congratulations to Joe on a successful campaign. That, as I mentioned, secured funds for primarily the facade of the church, but also the stained glass windows would be rolled in that as well, too, the big main one as well. The 2017 Mission Investment Fund allowed us to fund the work. So that is the lending arm of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. We got a $620,000 mortgage. We've been making payments for 2 years now at least, and we are down to about $580,000. So we paid down about $40,000 of principal there. So that might be a source if we could refinance or borrow that money back. We might be able to just get $40,000 back up to the $620,000, but possibility we could refinance, and because our giving is stronger, we might be able to borrow. My calculations are we could be able to borrow up to $710,000 if we want to take on that much debt as a faith community. It's significantly important. I'd like to remind people, First Lutheran people, I hopefully get it, but if you're watching this or you're talking for First Lutheran folks, as you talk to people in the community or friends or neighbors, there's some sense, depending on what church and what denomination you're from, there might be a sense that some larger church body sends a balloon over your building and drops envelopes filled with cash to fund these types of things. And that's not the case with our denomination. So certainly the Lutheran Church over the years has, since 1950 at least, or even 1940, has given really hundreds of thousands of dollars to First Lutheran, but that's been mission dollars, mission ministry to help support the mission ministry of the church, and some capital remodeling projects. This $600,000 mortgage should be thought of as like your own home mortgage if you're a homeowner. in that sense that you took on that debt and you are responsible for paying. So likewise, the First Lutheran congregation has this mortgage, and we are responsible. Members of First are responsible for that. So that is no one else is making that payment. So we have to continue to secure pledges and gifts to make those $3,200 a month mortgage payment for the next 23 years. So that next would be, we have 2020-2022 Faith Forward Capital Campaign we completed last fall. And so what's significant here is we've also secured capital fund resources for the next 2 years, or 3 years, remainder of this year and then the next 2 years. So we have stretched ourselves as a faith community. We have all along supported what's going on, and plus we have commitments that go through the end of 2022. So in a bit, when you start hearing numbers of what available funds we have for the Bell Tower project, they include pledges that might not be received until December 2022. And so we have to be mindful of that as we figure out our math on finances. And all this, again, reminder, is about 40 households would be to as the ones who are providing the funding for all these gifts and contributions. So total capital investment from 2015 to 2020 is $1.3 million. The message in there is that 40 households and then some other partner congregations and maybe some small gifts from events and whatnot, but 99.5% of that $1.3 million comes by way of people who have a direct connection to First Lutheran somehow. All right, so let me say that again. 99.5% of that 1.3 million comes from people who have a direct connection to First Lutheran specifically, whether they are members who moved away, or they are members of one of our partner congregations, or they're a partner congregation, or it's the loan, or they're members of First Lutheran. So their message there is we have been focused on our Lutheran faith community friends to fund the work up to date. And that's what's significant about the community campaign, because we were finally to a point where we've exhausted our resources, and now we're going to go to the community. And the message has been authentic, that we have done all we can. And if we want to expand and increase what we are doing, providing for the city, greater Cincinnati area, in the arts and human services and the aspect, we'd appreciate any support you might be able to offer. So that's part of our narrative too. Is we do not have the ability, unless we were to deplete all of our other resources, our cash reserves and our ministry dollars. We don't have any other resources, and I guess someone could lift it up and point to those resources, but I would not. I would say we limit our capital fund resources. We need to protect our ministry resources, because that's our core identity and purpose as a First Lutheran Church. We're not a historic preservation society. Next would be capital projects completed. So here's where I get a listing of what's done with 1.3 million and all those consultants and all those meetings and hours and times. We did the interior improvements by volunteers. The bridal room, the women's dress room, the men's room, the fellowship room, paint, doors, and hardware, lighting areas, the sanctuary, furniture in the community, the lounge. Examples there, the facade was completed along with the stained glass windows, and then the gallery was completed, adding a great enhancement to our ministry. That was a nice surprise addition there that we were able to do. And then the altar wall was most recently completed this past January. So we've been at work and under construction, in construction mode. I have, and you have if you've been here since 2015, pretty much the whole time. And then roof repairs and some new roof installed as well. So pictures like I promised, you can see that's what we've done. And so we had a strategic plan and a plan timeline of prioritization to move through this, so that we could make our building safe, like the facade right away, but then also enhance our building so that we could grow our ministry. So the gallery allowed us to really see a room full of people there, which was working fantastic. So COVID came along, really showing the community that we were here and making people aware and providing a benefit to the greater Cincinnati community. And then that then in turn was our hope, was then we would be able to continue on with the community campaign. So what's next? So what's next is Cincinnati engineer conducts an inspection to verify THP findings. Last Friday, I emailed over the report to the historic conservator at the city, and the message there was it would be forwarded on to the city engineer, who I imagine will be contacting me saying, hey, I want to come look at your tower and verify what this report says. What those findings will be, I don't know. I'm hoping, based on my reading of the report, the engineering report, that it'll be hard to argue against or to not concur with the findings, but I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what happens there. Next is the city. After that, City of Cincinnati Historic Conservancy Board review. So we'll have to go before the board to request whatever it is. If it's demolition, we'll have to request that and receive their approval, and then that's a recommendation then to City Council, who has final say on it, as my understanding goes. The City of Cincinnati Historic Conservancy meets every other Monday, and right now it looks like about 6 weeks to get on their schedule. If we have an urgent situation, I don't know if they would bump us to the front of the line and get us in sooner rather than later. It's all on Zoom these days. So I'm not sure what that would look like. So I think the city engineer's report, his level of urgency, his or her level of urgency on that finding might determine how fast we get in. Our interest is right now, the message is that we shouldn't be in the building. And if COVID opens the world back up, if COVID gets therapeutics and a vaccine, then we can start meeting again. I don't want us to be in a situation where the bell tower is keeping us close and everyone else is opened up. That would be tragic in my mind. And as I met with the contractors, they said at starting the conversation in August, as we did, if we got it down by February, that would be good. And that would be a timeline that would be reasonable. One said maybe by Christmas. They said that 1 month is about the demolition time. The real hard part is this upfront time. How long will the city engineer take to conduct the review? And then how long will the conservancy review take? And then permitting and all the other things that go along with this process take time. If you've done anything downtown in Cincinnati, you know and appreciate the bureaucracy you have to go through. So that is that. And then, I lost my thing there. And select contractor complete work. As I said, we have three bids, and they're all a little different. So we have to go back and kind of get some apples and apples comparisons to get them to tweak their bids. But we're waiting to see what the city engineer says before we have them invest more time in their bids. So we want the city engineer, hopefully will concur with the THP findings, and then we can go to the contractors and say, here's specifically what we're asking. So that there. And next is secure funding sources. So once we know what we're going to be able to do or allowed to do, then we can, and we take the contractor, we'll have a price tag, and then we can really focus in on what our funding paths and sources will be. Depending on the size of the funding needs, that'll drive what approach we take to secure the funding. It might, I think we're going to need to stretch. I don't know if I have any else in the report here, but right now, just so you know, and so as people ask whatever, as I said, through 2022, we have commitments for the Faith Forward campaign that we also have to pay the monthly mortgage of $3,200 for another 27 months. So that's how much money is that? Say 30 months times 3,000 is, was that? I don't know, can't do the math. What is that math? 90,000? No, that's not right. 30 times 3. Yeah, it is. We need $90,000 to pay the mortgage for the next 27 months. So that's some of those funds, but we identified, and we still are confident that we have $215,000 that will be available between now and the end of 2022 that we could use for other capital needs beyond the mortgage payments and other commitments. And that's how we were going to fund the community campaign, is we were going to use those dollars to fund the community campaign. So now that that's off the table, those funds are now available for other things, which, as you saw the price tags for the bids, the cheapest demolition price or quote was $300,000, and we can point to 215. But again, that's not cash in our hand. Those are pledges that will be coming in over the next 27 months. So there's lots of mathematics that goes on there. Next would be, we'll need congregational meeting or meetings to authorize. So hire a contractor, to secure the funding sources, whatever that might be, to those would be votes that we'd have to have. And it would also certainly, we're going to have more information presentation as we get the information to share with the congregation to keep everyone informed as best as possible about what's going on. Because these are significant, I think it's significant to share the information so people can understand why things are happening and then what paths we're going down. And it will talk some maybe more in the question and answer time period a bit about some of those details. And if approved, demolition of tower and 1212 building. As I mentioned, the 1212 building would be likely in that. The price tag to keep 1212 up actually drives up the demolition, and that was the lowest. That bid was $410,000. So that's almost $200,000 beyond what we had identified having available through 2022. So even that becomes prohibitive there. We could leave the facade up, take the building down, leave the facade up, and that would stay there until we got to our elevator phase or whatever was next. And 2023 to 2025, that's our next capital campaign. So that'll be our next opportunity to secure funding. And the significance of that is just an appreciation for that. That's when we can ask the question, what's next? We could say, you know what, things have cleared up and we want to raise funds to go back to the community campaign. Or we could say, you know what, our next funds, we want to get that elevator. That's now a priority. We can get to that now, and we want to have a campaign to secure funds for the elevator. So there's different thinking, but right now, I just want to lift that up. That's where our next opportunity to secure capital dollars is from a practical step-by-step process. It's important to note that. Certainly there's the unknown, and maybe a bequest from someone, we don't know, or maybe someone from the community will step forward when they hear about this, but we can't have a plan and a strategy based on those types of things. They're nice, but they're happy surprises and blessings, but we can't plan our restoration efforts and ministry around those uncertainties. So that's it. So thanks for your support of First Ministry to share the love of God. I want to now go ahead and open it up to any questions or comments anyone has. And I'm going to go ahead and stop screen share and get you all so you can see each other better.
Okay, I think my first question was, what happens to the elevator if we lose the 1212 building? Because weren't we going to use the 1212 building to get into the elevator?
Yeah, so I just changed my speaker settings, so maybe I don't know if I'm better or not. Can you still hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic, good. Whenever I click buttons midway in a presentation, it kind of makes me nervous, but I saw a big red exclamation point, so I figured I better adjust that. So your question is about what happens to our elevator accessibility center with the 1212 building. And yeah, some thought on that is, one is if 1212 stays there, we have the building. The plan was the building was there. It's a functional building, and but we would have to, the whole facade would be redone in such a way to make it more inviting with the glass wall, and move the door, because the door is not wide enough for wheelchair accessibility. That big metal door, as you know, I'm a healthy man, 6'4" and 225 pounds, and I have a hard time opening the door, and so it's not at all. It would not work for our future use as an accessibility center. It's actually a discouraging accessibility door. So that's an example of how, yes, it's there. It would have to be reconfigured a bit and updated. And so there would be some costs related to that. If you want to look for a benefit, is by removing 1212, that allows us to create an accessibility welcome center that is exactly like we would want it, without having to be confined by or restricted by the existing building that's there. An example being is there was a blank lot next to the Ensemble Theater over on Vine Street, and they used that, and they put a big glass wall in there, and they put their elevator in that lot. They took an empty lot and they did just what we would have. And so I think there's a good precedent just around the corner for us, and we can go look at it and say, wow, isn't that nice and welcoming, and it looks historically appropriate and fits in the neighborhood there. So that would be, so there certainly would be some costs. I think the cost would be, it saves us money on the demolition. It probably would cost us more, depending on what we built down the road when we do the elevator project, but we would be free to design it as we want. Now, depending on how extravagant we got, if we just built something simple, just like an entryway with an elevator, well, then the price tag would probably, wouldn't be that much more than repurposing 1212. Any other questions, thoughts? Everyone's quiet. Does anyone offer to donate $1.2 million so we can restore it?
We'd be happy to. We have to play the lottery a lot more. So
All right, there we
other
go.
than every couple years, yeah.
All right.
Do we happen to know the cost to put in a new bell system if we have to raise it? We've known other churches that faced similar problems, and it wasn't unusual many years ago to tear down these bell towers and put in a new bell system, even though it's smaller.
And chopped off, right. So it's chopped off and then we still have a bell system.
Yeah, so what, I guess I hear a few things in there. I'll just get these ideas out because they're relevant to a few other points that come up is one, we have one 2,000-pound bell up there. And it was put in there when they built the thing back in 1895. And so it's fantastic and still works great. As you know, you can hear it when you ring the clapper on it. And so that 2,000-pound bell, that would be salvaged and we'd bring it down and we'd have to figure out a place to put it in the meantime or right away, part of this project, but that would raise the cost. And then we also have the electronic carillon, someone in 2012. And this is an example where someone from the community could come forward and say, you know what, I'm passionate about this. I will contribute towards this restoration, whatever. And now this was a $12,000 donation of the electronic carillons. When you hear the Westminster chimes, that's someone from the community anonymously came and said, went to Verdon Company and said, here, deliver this and install it at First Lutheran, because I want to make sure, this is when Washington Park was being renovated and was going to open up again. I want to make sure there are church bells on the park. So that's an example of someone in the community, no connection to the church, just for them, that was important. And so they anonymously went to Verdon and told Verdon to they just showed up, I guess, and contacted, hey, we're coming to install this. Someone gave this to you, want it? And of course they were happy to take it. So that's an example. So we will salvage the bell, the 2,000-pound Verdon bell, and the $12,000 electronic carillon. Now, where do they go with those? So the thoughts could be the quotes we have for the demolition involve taking the tower down to the main beam line, which is right about the main roof structure, and they'll cap it off. And the one quote, for example, says it would be 2 by 12, flat roof with rubberized roof sealant over it. That would be considered to be, it would have to be temporary because the city would not allow that to be a long-term solution. So the message there was they don't know what we want to do, to your point. So they couldn't put anything in there for the bid. They're just going to demolish it and make it watertight. And but it would not be allowed to set long-term. I don't know how long the city, if we said that, hey, in 2 years, we think we're gonna be able to remove that temporary roof and put a more permanent thing, maybe like you're suggesting, up there, they might say, okay, fine, that's good. 2 years, we'll let it fly. I don't know what that timeline would be. They might say, no, you need to have something more aesthetically in line with, what's going on right away. So what that means is Alan, our architect, will have to draw up some type of thing that looks pleasing, even for short term, maybe, just so it looks nice. So a couple thoughts on where the bell could go. One is we could take and recreate the upper steeple box area where the bell's now and the pointed roof, and then put that on the capped off area, right? So it'd be basically removing all the sandstone body of the tower and then just having the box cap area and put the bell in there. So it'd just be, it'd be cut down to size, if you will. That would be one option. It would look, we could replicate what was there, and that might be an idea. The other idea was when we do the elevator shaft, we could put something on top of the elevator shaft and put the bell in that. And the difference, the nuance would be is my conversations with the Historic Preservation Conservancy people is that they're really not, for them it's not, they'd really prefer to preserve the original historic stuff and let it be the historic stuff and not try and make it look like something new has been there for 125 years. So if we were to recreate that bell tower box and it was short, then it would kind of be a deceptive historic message that, oh, look how they built things back in 1895. They might like the idea better of putting something on top of the elevator shaft and then some type of small roof structure on top of where it's capped off. I don't know. So I think so what that would allow for would be, if that were the path, it would allow, as brought up this morning by someone, is, you know what, that might be an opportunity for this previous generation built the church. We're putting a lot into it, so maybe it's an opportunity for us who are investing in doing the work now to put our fingerprint kind of on the church, on First Lutheran in the modern era. But it's still an appropriate look. But it would be a message. If you look across at Memorial Hall, they have an elevator shaft on the side by Music Hall. It is obvious that is not original to the 1912 construction or whatever that is. It's obvious 1960s. It's that light yellow brick that was so popular in the 60s. But the message was they wanted to do that on purpose. They said they didn't want to blend in. They said that was the idea, is that this is something that you can see as this was done at a different time and different era. But so that would be, so with it, in the meantime, though, I think cost is going to be a driver on it. Just getting the funds, get it down and get it capped. I'll be happy if we can secure that. If we happen to have extra funds and we can do something, that'd be great. But right now, my mind is let's get it down, and then we'll figure out what's next. And then in the meantime, what do we do with the bell? If we don't have 1212 there, then we can put a little bell structure in the 1212 area that's no longer there, and you can go have a little courtyard area perhaps, and go in there and have little gatherings there, whatever, wedding pictures, and ring the bell. My concern, and we can put the carillon up on electronic carillon, we could put that in a location on the sides of the stained glass window somewhere so it's still facing the park. Turn down the volume, because that's going to be a concern with the bell. If we bring a 2,000-pound bell down to the roof line of, say, the Tender Mercies building right next door, and we start ringing that thing, we're not going to have happy neighbors, and it's going to be quite a bit louder throughout the park. The carillon, we can at least turn the volume down to an appropriate level so it doesn't. But what that means, though, is since it's going to be lower, when we play it, there's going to be more sound blockage from the buildings and trees, because it's going to be down at the building and tree level. So you won't be able to hear the First Lutheran Church bells like you do now. That will be a loss, at least for the time being. The future thing could be is what, with the $1.2 million price tag, it gets us a restored bell tower, but still on the 1895 skeleton. And that would mean that future generations, maybe the next generation, 25 years, would need to be going back up to doing something else again because of the materials being used. So the opportunity, if it's allowed, would be to maybe put a taller structure back up at some point in the future that was made with modern design and materials that does not require, maybe maintenance once every 75 years or something like that. And you get the bell up there, then you could put the bell or the carillon way up high again. And so it's up where it should be, up in the clouds. That's where you have good bragging rights. We confirmed with the engineer, because they've had guys that worked on Music Hall, that First Lutheran's bell tower is indeed taller than Music Hall. It looks like it isn't, but Music Hall is so wide, but it is actually, the top of the bell tower is higher than Music Hall. So we are a monument building, is what it's called. Obviously we know that, but it's significant that way. So, and that just goes to show how high that bell is, and that'll be a consideration. It'll limit what we can do with our bells and carillon in the future if it's not up way in the air. Noise complaints. Other questions? I want to throw in this one other thing that I didn't mention this morning, is that they do have the jump off marks on the restoration bid. So the $610,000 I mentioned is the first kind of stabilization price point. So for $610,000, we could stabilize the tower and do some immediate kind of concern works on the stone. But again, like I said, we couldn't stop. We couldn't say, oh, good, we can move on to the next thing or forget about it. Our next capital dollars would have to go into the tower until we got to that $1.2 million price tag. And so stabilizing it, yeah, we can stabilize it so it doesn't fall down, but we're still left with a long-term, it would be many, 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 many years until we get to anything else but the bell tower. And I think that would hurt our mission and ministry and enthusiasm. Because First Lutheran, the message is for our mission and ministry, we don't need a tower. An elevator would benefit us much greater, and that's I think just a reality. my fear is that as the world becomes our society has come a long way in mandating accessibility, and I think as the years go by, that's going to be more and more a requirement. So for example, YPCC, since 2015 has been using First Lutheran for rehearsals. 1,200 singers have come through, but there's never been a singer in a wheelchair, at least in First Lutheran. Maybe they've gone to other places, and maybe they say, well, I'd like to sing in the winter cycle, but rehearsals are at first, so I can't sing in the choir this winter. And also so that's one, our inclusivity, our RIC statement we just approved. But then we go into the reality that YPCC, as they become more significant and receive more grant fundings, there might be stipulations in there that, hey, you need to be providing an accessible space. If you're gonna use our grant, you have to have accessibility for all the singers that you're reaching to, and that would be a tragedy in my mind if we couldn't host a fantastic group like YPCC. And they're one of many. I mean, you can go down the list of groups that come to First that receive grants. Other thoughts? Joe's smiling. He's a consultant. He's got it all figured out.
No, not exactly. But
You've got the 1.2 million.
yeah. I'm just going to shift decimals around. There's got to be a way to make that work. Just move the decimal points.
Have like a little amplifier, sound director going up, right?
Yeah.
So send the sound up.
So, but I need to step away. So
Okay.
if we're not at the end of the meeting,
Yeah, I just want to add one more note, Joe, might be of interest to you, as it was brought up earlier. Should we maybe consider just on our own going to the community to see if there might be interested individuals to help secure funds for the restoration? And then my response to that was, my hope is that we'll put the word out there. Someone might self-select to step forward. But if I'm going to go to the community and ask for significant funding, and if we have to do that on our own because we can't hire a consultant, then I want to save that ask for an elevator. Right? Because if we go and ask for money to restore a bell tower, and then 2 years later we're going back, hey, would you also like to donate to an elevator? I think I want to save my ask, because I think that is something that is more beneficial to the ministry of First, but also I think is of more value to the community than the bell tower. Having an accessible venue like First Lutheran is of greater value than the historic bell tower. They're both important, but I think when you weigh the two side by side, I think I'm right on an argument that accessibility is the most significant consideration in that conversation. So I'd save my intentional ask. If I were going to approach someone, because it's not easy to do, if anyone wants to go with me on those visits, let me know, and I'll send you an email invitation. But that's my response to that. And maybe someone will come through and want to join or support the effort to rest bell tower, but that would just be an organic self-selection thing.
Yeah.
There's Dan. He thought it was at 7 o'clock because that's what I said on Sunday. Anyway, thanks, Joe.
All right. Take care. See y'all.
Thanks. So Dan, do you have any questions?
Did I just jump on the end?
Yeah. I changed it to 6. Don't listen to what I say in worship, especially the sermons.
I'm working the time zones here.
Oh yeah. No, Sunday I said 7, but then I sent out the email and the emails.
Yeah. I knew I was late. I just assumed you were going for a few hours.
What do you, man, you didn't take you long to figure me out. No, 1 hour. Yeah. Any other observations or?
I feel like I need to process it, but my gut feel is that you're on target. I mean, as sad as it is, and if I have one more sad thing happen this year, I'm going to just lose my mind.
Yeah, your Facebook post, I saw that. Yeah, I said, can I handle one more thing? And I bet you, I think it's I look at it as it's someone. Oh, I know. Someone made the comment about, First Lutheran has had all this good news in these recent years, and so now we got some bad news. And my response is, no, it's only bad news if you don't rise of faith to see maybe the blessing in it. And the blessing could be that we get an elevator sooner than we would have otherwise. The bell tower, maybe it's God saying, you know what, the bell tower is in the way of that, right? So You put enough money into the historic restoration of the building, the stained glass, the facade, the gallery, and all these other things. You need an elevator because the elevator is always a thing that gets pushed down the road. That can gets kicked down the road. Everyone's like, no, we can do that later. And so I think it's the timing is the same month that we become an RIC congregation, which is a statement about being fully inclusive, and yet no one in a wheelchair can come be inclusive with us, that we might have a path to get to an elevator sooner rather than later is, maybe a blessing in there. And that's how I look at it, because it will be a loss when I come out of the parking garage or stand in the Sept Music Hall and look across the park and there's no bell tower there. There will be a loss, but it sure will be a great day when I can push a button and hop on an elevator and with someone who can't climb stairs.
Well, and maybe there will be somebody out there that wants it, that wants to give us the money to get it back.
Yeah, you don't know. Yeah, and then that's the thing too. It's not done, because the future could bring it. It's we could build it in the future, so that's possible.
Right.
And build it better. It's like the $6 million man. Mary Ann.
I was just wondering because Verdun built our bell tower. Ours is short, but was this bell, the bell that's currently in First Lutheran's bell tower, is that by them?
Yeah, it's a
and would they come and build a tower possibly? I don't know.
It's a Verdun bell, and ours is 2,000 pounds. Your Luther Reformation bell, 5th anniversary Reformation bell, that's out in the parking lot there, the yard, is, I want to say it's 250 pounds or something like that. So
I have no idea.
Ours is a lot larger, but we have all the wood structure up there. It's on a big wheel and whatnot, so the wood frame's there. And so they might not have to build us anything. They could, and that would be their interest. If it's on Washington Park and it's on display, then they might want to, but we've been in conversation before, and it hasn't really led to any offers.
I was just thinking, I agree with you all that, for me, First Lutheran's always been like the mission, like you all have been talking, and I would believe the elevator would be of a lot more importance and, access. But I was just thinking that maybe Verdun might donate whatever you need for the bell tower. So anyway, just a thought.
Yep, no, appreciate it. And that's, you never know what might be out there. And I think that's what's significant is that our ministry partners like LCR, Lutheran Church of Resurrection Anderson, is that historically been very supportive in the mission of ministry. And I think overwhelmingly the people of LCR will say, man, an elevator over a bell tower any day. And when it comes down to it, those who are financially supporting and actually paying the bills are going to make the decision. The community values, and our experiences I demonstrated through our consulting efforts through Partners for Sacred Spaces and Discovery Study, is the community is very supportive, but legitimately they have the ability to say, you're a church, and I give my support this way or that way, or I it's a financial commitment that we can't assume that everyone's going to want to make a donation to, especially significant donations. I'm confident I could go out in the community now and do a GoFundMe thing and get $20,000 from the community for the bell tower, but that would be disingenuous because the price tag is much greater than that. And then I'd have $20,000 donated through a GoFundMe effort, and people would say, well, why are you tearing the bell tower down? You did an appeal. And so we'd have to have a confident strategy to secure the funds in a very short period of time if we were going to go to the community, because we couldn't secure half the funds because we don't have the delta. We don't have the ability to make up the difference. We have to have a certainty in our ability to secure the funds, and so it's going to come back to my sense is it's going to come back to those who are most invested and directly connected to First Lutheran and its ministry are the ones who are going to drive the direction this goes.
Okay.
Thanks. Is that it? I don't have to talk anymore. So if you all don't want to talk anymore, which is fine. We're an hour and 5 minutes. This is great. I love Zoom. I'm more efficient, and everyone else appreciates that too. I am available for other conversations, sidebar, email, text, phone call. Come drive and park outside my house and yell up the hill or something. Whatever you're most comfortable with. And I look forward to you dwelling on this and letting it sink in. But hopefully you are informed now, and we can be on a similar page as we have an informed message to those we talk to. I was on a run today, and it hit me, and Carla's on, and she's a runner, and I got that second wind. I'm like, man, I got to get back to my office because we need to start putting together great material in literature to make available once this gets out in the public, that this is actually going to happen. People will be visiting our website, Facebook page, news reporters, media, interviews, and it's a ministry opportunity for us because we're going to have lots of exposure, and we should take this as an opportunity to, yes, talk about our historic building, but also it would be a loss on our part if we didn't talk about what we're providing to the Cincinnati community. And so that we need to really step up our game on our messaging on who we are and what we're doing. Yeah. Hi, Jeremy.
Howdy.
Sorry, we're a little late. I forgot it was at 6 and not 7.
Well, you know what? You're in luck. You know, you get the best of both worlds because this is recorded. So I will be making this available. I'll email it out through our email distribution list. So you'll be able to watch this. And you didn't have to, you can watch it at your leisure after the kids go to bed or something. And Saturday afternoon for First Communion, that worked out. I just verified. So Christine, if Saturday afternoon after 2 o'clock, evidently, does that still work for you? That works.
Yes.
So what works best between 2 and 6? Any
2
choice?
o'clock.
Preference? 2 for Christina?
2's fine.
2's great for us too. Yes.
Right. So Flora will be there at 2 then. All right, great. Thanks all the rest of you for listening to us schedule a First Communion class for the 3 girls.
Thank you.
All righty, that's all. Go in peace, share the love of God, and this recording will be available here shortly, and you can share with friends as you see. I'll email it out. Thanks all.
Thank you, God.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.